everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses, presented by Saratoga Water, Acacia Clement, and Sarah L. Bodway. Luckily, we got the wardrobe memo to wrap up what's really been, Sarah, a really fun week of racing.
Absolutely. Some excellent performances yesterday. I know that we had a couple of horses that were perhaps enhanced by a speed-favoring racetrack, but still very exciting to see all of those graded stakes quality horses yesterday. And I feel like we always do seem to match quite frequently.
We do. Yeah, we do. You know,
it happens.
The boys have to step up their game, you know, when it comes to the color coordination. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, actually my last day of the season, but you can certainly catch me throughout the winter too. We're doing some of the big days at Tampa once again, and I'll be back here and there over the next couple of months. But it's been a lot of fun getting to do these shows with you, and we'll be on America's Day at the Races a little bit later together
I
too.
know, and we do have a slightly early dismissal today going on with some accelerated post times, some wet weather outside, unfortunately. So we'll get those races going sort of rapid fire throughout the day, but we'll get them all completed, and that's all that matters.
And some fun races today too. We have a couple of New York Stallion Series stakes as well. But if you have not signed up yet for NYRA Bets, what are you waiting for? Now's your opportunity. Be sure to sign up, get started, use promo code MATCH200. You get a promo code MATCH200 for up to your $200 deposit match sign up bonus. Check out nyrabets.com for more details today. And we also have a 0% takeout when you play Exactas at Aqueduct, with no takeout on Sundays, which is really fun. I think that's actually a little Lindsay.
I think
on
it
the
is.
Right. Yeah, that was when she got disqualified, right?
A race that we'll actually take a look at later. So there we go.
We're going to talk about her a little bit later. So maybe there's your hunch bet for the afternoon in that photo. And of course, surprise, middle pick 4. Big shock today. With a 9-race card, it will start in race 3.
I think so.
Okay, we're going to go with that, but be sure to check. Sounds about right. Middle pick 4.
We should really
3
know.
pick 4s every day. We should know by now. And then finally, America's Day at the races. We start off on FS1 at noon. As Sarah said, we're actually going to be off the air at 4 o'clock instead of 4:30 because of the accelerated post times. But we're still going to start on FS1 at 12 as planned, then move to FS2 at 2 p.m. So be sure you tune in there for the races. Still showing all of the races, just finishing early because of the accelerated post times because of some of the wet weather out there. As we'll dive right into it. Maiden claiming to start things off. There is not a lot of things to sink your teeth into in this first race. Sarah, you and I both going with the 3 Bargaining Power. We'll take a look at his last race. This is when he finished second at this level and comparable distance as well, going the 6th, and first off the claim for Linda Rice.
Exactly, just a horse that was a little bit more forward, still not the one setting the pace as that was Berloni that day, a horse that was dropping significantly in class, but we did see this a day on October 5th where inside speed was kind of where you wanted to be, and this is a horse that was a little bit more outside. A horse in Duke of Gloucester, who was 3rd in there, did return to win with improvement and just been really in good form lately, ran an improved number versus top first starter allowance types, and then dropped back in for a tag just the other day to get another win. So I feel as though this is just kind of the one you want because Linda Rice, she has good numbers in these situations. Maidens, dirt sprints, first off the claim, 9 for 25, so she's 36% with a $1.80 ROI over the past 5 years. And with the scratches, I feel like this might end up being the speed.
That was my thinking too. I went for the horse that had more early foot and hoping that Bargaining Power could just be on the engine early with Jose Lezcano in the saddle. Interestingly enough, kind of the 2 main players in this race are both claimed from Chad Brown, or I should say started out with Chad Brown. Swing District looks like he was purchased out of that race, as Mike Maker now owns and trains this one. But he is a horse, and yes, he's adding blinkers, but he was off slowly in that first start. That was for 20,000. Just seemed kind of like Chad kind of quickly gave up on him, and we'll see, you know, what he does in his second start.
Exactly. I thought it was interesting. He had to work at Churchill, but now he's back here. So maybe just trying to find the right kind of spot for him. But I wonder why take him away from a place where he's ultimately going to run if that was always the intention and plan. So just a little bit of an interesting move. Certainly can win, and is the horse coming in with a higher number.
Second last time out, we had Frisky Jim, who was 4 to 5. And then I guess the other one would be Tap Your Heart, who at least he's taking a drop in class, the one.
Precisely, and a horse with less opportunities to disappoint than some of the others here.
We turn our attention to race number 2, 6 furlongs on the main track, $40,000 claiming race non-winners of 2 in life. And let's start off with Will Be Famous. We're going to take a look at her race. 2 starts back on November 3rd. And apologies if you had her this day and thought that she was home free, because she looked like she was going to be, only to be run down late by my girl Jal. But I thought that this was a step in the right direction. She tried starter allowance company last time and didn't disgrace herself. I know she's not a winning type, but nobody in this field really is.
Exactly, and it ran well this day, and I think that you can forgive just the company that she was facing last time, just a level that she might not be able to be competitive against, and she did really all the dirty work this day. I mean, she was the horse that was contesting the pace along with several others that was ultimately able to survive that duel and just couldn't hold off a horse that was coming from off the pace. So she was the one that put away all of those others. Kind of a mixed bag of horses coming out of there as far as what they did in their next start. Some of them regressed, a couple of them that finished behind her did come back and improve. But for me, I ultimately felt she was a little bit with the track that day. That was a day where the rail likely not the place to be. She was always wide, but she's certainly a very logical type in here, and I have no knocks against her.
You go with the layoff runner, Starry Midnight. At least she has been running against better.
Exactly, and it might be the only thing that you can say about her. She's kind of a question mark as she now drops in class off this layoff, and she did break her maiden at first asking versus state bred maiden special weight types, and then just in against so much tougher throughout the rest of her career. The numbers for Linda Rice coming back off a layoff like this in dirt sprints, they aren't great. When you look at the numbers that she has overall, they're just really fantastic and stellar in other places, so this is not necessarily a position of excellence for that kind of statistic, but I feel as though this is a situation where she's kind of the only other one that I saw with upside coming into this field.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. I mean, she did win first time out, and then after that, she was running against New York Bred Stakes Company and just much tougher allowance company than what she's going to face today. I always wonder with you know, they wait so long off a layoff and then she drops when coming back off the layoff. That's always a little bit of concern, but look, I mean, she's just been facing much tougher than what she's going to find in this field in here today. The number 1 Ghostly Girl ran at this level back in September, and she ran a fine race that day, finishing second, though that afternoon she didn't switch leads, and she's just dropping back down to a level kind of at which they claimed her. I think just being realistic.
Absolutely. She's just kind of the other one that makes sense in this spot and is a horse that can have some forward position as well, though certainly not needing to be on the lead in here. And ran respectively behind Roman Goddess. We saw Dashing Della come out of there and do well for herself following that. So I think that she's just been another one that's been a little bit too ambitiously placed and now just returns to a level where she could be successful.
Those are some of the logical players in the second. Let's go on to race number 3 because this one's a good one. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one. A 2-year-old filly allowance race here going 7 furlongs on the main track. And let's start off with Gunsong, who she broke her maiden on debut. And we'll take a look at this race. And I thought that she actually did the dirty work this day. She was up close. She was in between horses late, which especially for a young filly can kind of be a compromising position to be in, and she was incredibly game to get the win. She got a pretty gaudy figure for that effort as well, at least versus what she's facing in here, and it was also on a wet track.
Exactly. So knowing that she's certainly capable over a surface like she'll see today helps her. The 2 horses on either side of her did have experience. One of them, Value Area, did come back and regress slightly, but certainly a very capable type for the Pletcher barn. And the horse that was to her inside that day, and Don't Say It, had tried the turf prior to that. So facing horses that at least made a few starts and was able to really be very game in that effort. So she makes a lot of sense in here. And just as you mentioned, the number came back pretty decent as well.
72 Buyer speed figure. She's well bred to by Gunrunner, needs no introduction, and out of a grade 2 winning mare, Nicole H. But I guess the question is, can she repeat that effort? And as she'll now get an extra furlong to work with as well. You go to the 2 Blues, or Bell's Blue Bell. That has to be fun for
Chris
track
Griffin.
announcers. Good luck, Chris. We wish you the best. At least she has the foundation turning back a little bit.
Right, and a horse that was setting the pace last time out when stretching out in the Tempted, and we saw Shimmering Allure come back and finish a good second to Life Talk
79
yesterday.
buyer for her yesterday.
Exactly. So just facing some decent company as far as the 2-year-olds go. I like her cutting back in distance a little bit as she wasn't able to sustain that speed versus tougher company last time. And I also like that in her sprint debut, she was able to sit just off of it a little bit. So I feel as though with cutting back in distance, she's a horse that doesn't need the lead, shown a little bit of versatility. And I think just getting a little bit of class relief in here could help her out as well.
It's interesting that she's in for the $80,000 tag, isn't it?
Right. But at the same time, I guess, kind of a homebred, she's a Gervin, his stud fee is $25,000. There isn't a ton of pedigree.
No.
So maybe they think if somebody takes her for that price tag, they do okay.
Kind of interesting too, Florida bred filly. So we'll see what she does in her third start. Then you have Caress. No, not that Caress. But this filly, she won first time out, a little bit green that day. And then last time, I don't know about you, Sarah, but in the Smart Halo, I just felt like she never really looked comfortable in that race. And the blinkers go on today, and I don't know, I mean, she kind of broke okay, maybe a little bit flat-footed, and it looked like there was horse at the top of the stretch, and then she just really had nothing late. She just never really looked like she got into stride.
Right. It's just kind of disappointing effort, I guess, off of the debut for her. But I agree. She didn't really look like she was ever in a position to do her best running that day. I think when you see these horses that are impressive enough first-time out winners, especially for the George Weaver barn, and then they go to another track like Delaware or Laurel or somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic, you kind of have an expectation for them. And I feel as though even regressing slightly in terms of her buyer speed figure, to me, she isn't one that I wanted to take at a super short price in here, though certainly could be capable.
Opting to run here instead of trying the demo cell yesterday, kind of going along slowly. On the bottom side, there is actually pedigree for some distance. The dam actually ran in Europe on turf and synthetic, but the second dam is Caress Singh, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies in the La Trayenne, among other races. So suggesting that she should be able to handle going longer, just think she kind of needs to show a little bit more at this stage.
I agree. And then the horse that neither of us have any interest in, but couldn't she be the speed in Leslie's lead?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. and it's interesting. I mean, she was able to do just that when she broke her maiden on a wet track, and she's run fine. When she faced Stakes Company for the first time in the Matron last time, she was off the pace, so kind of taken out of it. But it'll be interesting to see what she does, you know, especially with the presence of a horse like Bell's Blue Bell.
Thankfully, we don't have to say it, right?
Yeah. I'm going to see my pedigree for maybe like the 2. Yes. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the pace plays out.
And we did have a track yesterday, which things have changed. We've had a lot more rain, which was really helping speed along. So if we have similar situation today at a huge price, maybe worth consideration, though I don't think that you can assume that we're going to see the track be like it was yesterday off the bat.
Yeah. And like you said, pretty much steady rain throughout the morning and into the afternoon today, too. On to the fourth race, 6 furlongs on the main, $35,000 claiming race. This one, fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. And we kind of have interest in the same couple of horses. Why don't we start off with How's Your Cash Flow and Everly's Girl and show that replay. You do prefer How's Your Cash Flow. And for such a big filly, she's shown to be a much better sprinter, which is what she's going back to today.
And I gave Andy Sterling a hard time for picking this favorite entry last time when she was stretching out in distance, and it was ultimately her stablemate Chasing Daylight that was able to get the victory in there, but she ran well to finish second, and I was completely convinced that she was just a sprinter and that was going to be too much for her, but she actually ended up improving to a number that we had only seen from her in her first start. So we're taking a look at the race where she won sprinting 2 back, but the horse that she and Everly's Girl finish 1-3 against, Solib, is actually one that's really done very well lately.
She's improved a lot.
You have to respect a horse that one of them, and How's Your Cash Flow, was able to defeat and that Everly's Girl was facing. And I just think that now returning to what she ultimately might want to do, I couldn't look past her in here. I think that this might be an easier field than she faced last time, and she's getting the benefit of a distance that I do think she prefers.
I completely agree. I think that she is kind of the one that you want in here. I take a little shot against her with the 7 Maggie just to be a little bit different in here. But she is a horse that's been very popular off the claim recently, and now lately is joining the Ray Handle barn. But the thing about her is that she kind of runs no matter who's training her. She runs a race. She's been consistent. I don't know if she's quite as good as How's Your Cash Flow, and we'll kind of get to see that today, but I respect that consistency and the fact that she always seems to show up and run a race.
She does. She's a horse that you can kind of trust at this level, or even running against a little bit tougher. She does seem to always show up and run a respectable race, and even her last two numbers don't put her that far off of races that How's Your Cash Flow was running in the past.
So we'll see what happens with her today. From the inside, Everly's Girl will rematch with How's Your Cash Flow, but she has now been claimed by Michelle Nevin. So kind of an interesting new face in here as well, and a lot of changes with some of those claims in this race, a little bit of that theme.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a race where we see horses going out for new barns, or perhaps dropping or stepping up in class. I didn't want to completely dismiss the Park Shipper, Mended We Stand, who has numbers that would make her awfully tough in this kind of spot based on her last race, but it's a number that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
7-length win at Park. So yeah, she's intriguing as a bit of a new face coming here to the NYRA circuit. So we'll see what she has to offer. On to the 5th race. We'll take a break after this one. But $16,000 non-winners of 2 in life. And it's a 1 1/8 on the main track in the 5th race, which I think is really kind of the, going through this race, I said, okay, who can I kind of trust to say this one can get the distance? Because I don't know if a few of the horses in here really want to go that far. We'll take a look at Uncle Waterflow and South Street as they will rematch after finishing 2-3 in that race back in November. At least with Uncle Waterflow, you look back at some previous races and he's run well at the 1 1/8 distance, and we'll see if he can build off of that third with a little bit of a wide trip.
And now goes third off the layoff as well, and I thought really did improve last time, second off the bench, and is a horse that you go back and you do see some of those races at this distance, so certainly could take another step forward. And the horse that was defeating both of them, Kingdom, did come back and run a pretty good third against much tougher here the other day.
And when cutting back in distance too.
Exactly, with a very aggressive ride, which ended up paying off as he was able to hold on for third that day. So you know that they were defeated by a horse that's in good form right now that was able to run against some much better competition.
You go to Dad's Good Runner. He is taking a drop in class, and I guess the big question with him is, can he get the distance?
Right. At least he's run a little bit at a mile at this level in the past. And his second 2 starts ago, he earned a 72 Beyer speed figure when finishing behind Skate to Heaven. And there was a pretty contentious pace for the level that day. So I do think that that helped him as he got kind of that mid-pack trip. But now with the scratches in this race of Happy Bob and even Chief Engineer, there isn't a lot of speed going on in here, and Time for US actually now has South Street as your pace setter in terms of their predictions for who's going to be in front, because there isn't really that confirmed front runner in here. So it'll be intriguing to see who ultimately goes in this race. This is a horse I liked, of course, before those scratches took place, but ultimately ended up keeping this one. I don't know. I think that this is the right kind of level for this horse, and he's run better races for the $16,000 tag than he did stepping up last time out, and even the start before that he was off a little bit of a freshening. So just one that I thought would be a fair enough price.
And one that I think if he is going to get the distance and aggressive ride and being forwardly placed should suit him well. And then you have Bold Looker, who we know wants the distance. It's just off of avoided claim, bit of a layoff, and he's a deep closer.
Right, and so horses that might have been forward coming out of this race, they don't really help his cause.
Well, that's the first 5. We'll take a quick time out, hear from our sponsors, and be back for the late pick 4.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses, presented by Saratoga Water with Acacia and Sarah, as we are Moving on to the 6th race coming up here, also known as the race that Un Ojo is in, which Sarah is very excited about. It's a New York bred allowance race going a mile and an eighth. And why don't we just start there, Sarah? We both pick him, so he has no shot today. So Un Ojo has not won since he was 75-1 in the Rebel. And let's just take a little bit of a stroll down memory lane.
Yeah, he got a great ride this day. I mean, he's able to come up the rail and win at a huge price, and he hasn't won since then, but he's a horse that was really on that Kentucky Derby trail, ended up actually scratching from the Kentucky Derby, one of those scratches that led to the presence of Rich Strike in the race, so kind of helped him out a little bit, I guess. But this was a narrow victory for him, and he's a horse that he kind of tailed off, and you wondered where he was ultimately going to end up, but now with Linda Rice, he's actually been able to put some good races together back to back, and he has returned to State Bred Company and really shown up. He had a good second place game effort behind Olympic Dreams, a horse that we saw the other day sort of return to that good form that he had been in at this time. They had a kind of an odd turf attempt with him where he was really aggressive in a race and then just backed out of there, so you can excuse that effort.
He's not a turf horse.
No, I guess they found that out, that was not where he wanted to be. And then he ran a decent third last time out behind Straight Arrow and Sheriff Bianco, some really solid New York bred horses. So I just felt as though he ultimately gets into a field where he's getting a little bit of class relief. You know, he can handle a wet track, and he's a horse that can be tactical. He can be forward, he can sit just off the pace, he can close like he did in that Rebel long ago, and I just felt like he might end up being the best horse in this race.
I think it's possible too, and I also think an important thing to note is that this is his first start with Linda that's not in stakes company, so I think that that's really going to be the key. He's running against some nice horses in here, some decent allowance types, but like you said, you mentioned Straight Arrow and Sheriff Bianco, Olympic Dreams, even Double Crown that he faced in Maryland, a horse that has ability too, so he's just not facing that level of horse, I think, in here, not to mention there should be some pace in this race, and he can, I think, kind of sit that perfect stalking trip.
I agree, and if there isn't, which we often see things be
Then
a
he can
little
go
bit
if needed.
suspect. Exactly, and you have a horse that can adapt to whatever is in front of him, and Jose Lezcano gave some really smart rides yesterday, so I think that he's also a rider that if some sort of bias does develop, he'll figure it out.
Aggressive with Dr. B, and that paid off, winning the Go for Juan. We'll also see Colloquy and Prince of Pharaoh's rematch. We'll take a look at their last race, in which they were both beaten by Maker's Candy, a horse that had been facing consistently New York bred stakes company and was kind of the class of that field, so no surprise there. And it's interesting is they'll go back out to the mile and eighth, which I think Colloquy will really appreciate. And to be honest, Prince of Pharaoh's has run okay going longer before, though I think he's perhaps a little bit better around the mile.
That's fair. Prince of Pharaoh's is a horse that was forward this day, and Baker's Candy, as you mentioned, is just a horse that he returned to a field that he was supposed to defeat in this spot, so no problem with him being the one that defeats both of them. I like both of them. I think those are the other horses that you could be using in this race. I don't love that Prince of Pharaoh's is kind of slowly declining just a little bit, but it's kind of not significant enough to talk me off of him.
That's fair. I was wondering if we were going to see Boss making boss moves, kind of turn things around.
He used to be okay.
He used to be okay. He likes a wet track, and he likes distance. I do wonder if we have a similar track to what we had yesterday, he'll really be up against it. But I thought that there could be quite a bit of speed in here, and if that actually does materialize, he's kind of a true closer who will be coming from off of it. And he kind of ran okay, running on, finishing fourth in that race we just saw.
And I think that his races as of late, I think that it was kind of that confidence booster when he was dropped in for a tag versus Open Company. He ran a decent third that day against horses that Magnolia Midnight is not a true $16,000 claimer. I mean, that's a good horse that he was facing. So tough for the level for sure. And then I think that his last couple of races have been a move in the right directions for him. I do kind of worry that he is a horse that just gives himself so much to do.
What about Exit Right? Talking about speed, this one has speed. Look at his last race at Parks. He's kind of the new invader, and how does he stack up against these?
He's just consistent. I mean, he's a horse that he's dominated on this circuit in Pennsylvania, but he shows up and he runs his race. He's a 17-time winner with 8 seconds and 6 thirds. I mean, you know what you're going to get from him, and he usually gives you a similar kind of number as well. So I don't know. I will see how he stacks up in terms of facing horses here, but it's interesting that he comes here after being at Parks for so long because he is a New York bred.
It is. So we'll see how he stacks up against these. Even the last time he was at Aqueduct in April, he was running against Open Allowance Company, not New York bred foes. So we'll see what he does in theirs. Race 7 is our first of 2 stakes on the day. It's the New York Stallion Series Staten Island division for fillies and mares 3 and up. 7 furlongs on the main track. You've been to Staten Island?
No, I haven't actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You got to take the Staten Island Ferry.
Boats
a-
bother me.
Really?
I get seasick, and it's not for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe someday.
We'll get you over there. The Staten Island Ferry is a true experience. We both go to the number 7, Morning Matcha. I didn't try to get too cute in here, Sarah. We'll take a look at her winning back in April. This was last time that she went the 7 furlongs.
And she wins a stakes race here that wasn't against too many horses, and she was a short price and kind of supposed to do so. She's actually a Pennsylvania bred, but she does qualify for this
Being
race.
a New York sired horse.
Exactly, a central banker. So kind of fun that she is able to kind of enjoy the benefits of both Pennsylvania and New York with that kind of situation. And she's faced some tough horses in the past. I mean, she was running 3rd in the Turnback the Alarm last time behind Interstate Daydream and Tizzy in the Sky. She's just consistent. She shows up, and while she hasn't had as many wins as of late, I feel as though this is a situation kind of like earlier. She's the class of this field, and I wasn't trying to beat her. I would have loved to make a stronger case for Little Lindsay, but not enough that I could have ultimately put her on top over a horse that I think just has the quality in Morning Matcha.
I agree. And while I think that Morning Matcha is better a little bit longer, I just think that she might be better than what she's facing. And hats off to Butch Reed for taking advantage of the fact that she is a New York sired horse. And like we said, he ships with a purpose here. Dr. B, a good example of that yesterday. But we kind of teased it for you with Little Lindsay. She is a horse that has been running in these types of races, and she's run on turf and dirt. We'll take a look at the day that she was disqualified. Le Bon Temps ended up getting the win that day. So blinkers going on this filly, who, as we know, can be a little bit quirky. There she is, the gray that's getting out. I actually think that she's better on the turf, but she can run on either surface.
She can, and her biggest number so far was her maiden breaking win at a big price first time out, and that was turf sprinting. But she's a horse that she was disqualified this day. She was consistently getting out, and now the blinkers go on to possibly help her focus a little bit more. But this is a horse that Katie Davis is very familiar with. We've seen her do a really good job with horses like Daddy Knows, who are more difficult to ride and who do seem to get out and be those types that maybe not everybody wants to sit on, but she certainly has a good relationship with those types of horses. So I like that she's been able to have that experience with this one, and a horse that is returning to the dirt. And really, in all of her dirt starts so far, yes, they've been against horses that are those 3-year-old types, other than her last one where she was on the turf facing older for the first time. But she's really been in against some of the best 3-year-old New York breds overall, and a little bit unlucky last time, as I feel as though maybe she was the best horse in that race, but you can't drift out that many paths and bump your foe in the lane.
More on the rest of these fields in a moment. We're going to take a quick pause. We'll be back after this break on Talking Horses. We need to find our cameraman.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. We have our right camera set up now. Got that all fixed. I thought I was going to have to go back to my college days when I had to learn how to shoot camera and do the whole production and everything.
We can do it all, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff already as it is. But thanks for sticking with us, everyone. We're staying on the 7th race momentarily, the Staten Island division of the New York Stallion Series, because, Sarah, we have to at least mention the 4 Buston Bay. I put her second. You kind of put her further down. And if she was just coming off of a race 2 starts back, I know that she was disqualified, but if she was coming off that race 2 back,
possibly vying for the top.
Exactly. And then this last race, I mean, what happened?
I don't know. I mean, you have to think that there's a major vote of confidence to run her back so quickly, because if something major had gone on, she wouldn't be here.
Yep.
But at the same time, that race last time as the short price favorite was extremely disappointing.
Yeah, it really was.
And we had not seen her do something like that in quite some time. She's a horse that seemed to always be very consistent and run her race and not be the type to just throw in a bad race on occasion. So I'm hesitant to take her at a short price within this race following that last effort. But clearly, if you just draw a line through it for whatever reason, she could be very tough in here.
We'll see what happens. She was ultra consistent prior to that when Linda Rice had her previously, reclaiming her a couple races back. Now we'll go on to the New York Stallion Series Thunder Rumble division in race 8, 7 furlongs the main track. This one's for the boys. 3-year-olds coming and upward coming up here. As this race, I think, kind of revolves around a couple of horses. Do you trust Today's Flavor? Do you trust Barese coming back? How do you figure out that this race will play out? Let's start with Today's Flavor, and we'll take a look at his win a couple back, because he does have that always dangerous speed.
He does, and I think that this is a situation where you have to ask yourself if we're ever going to see the Today's Flavor that we used to see around this time last year when he was on that impressive win streak and showing those high 90 buyer speed figures, so much so that they actually did try him in the Grade 1 Carter, and I don't blame them for doing so.
He ran okay that day.
He did, against much tougher company. I mean, getting back in against New York breds after that in the Affirmed Success, he ran well. You know that he certainly appreciates off-going and can handle it without any sort of problem, and he was able to win that Belmont Turf Sprint Stakes, which was neither on the turf or at Belmont.
No.
2 back, but
minor details, really. Yeah.
He won, and that's what matters, and he earned a 93, which at least was some semblance of who he had been in the past. And I feel as though just running in the Hudson, he got the good version of Rotney that day, and so you can maybe
that was a quick pace.
Forgive him for falling back quite a bit in there. But then you have to wonder, is Be the Boss going to press him today? Are there other horses that are going to be forwardly placed? Is Lobster going to try to go from the inside? And Heeman Harkey's not going to rate a horse like that who does his best running by being forward. So I think that you do have to ask yourself if he is ultimately going to prevail as the speed of the speed, going the 7 furlongs today, and what kind of pace pressure he might end up getting.
And it should be noted, too, before we move on from Today's Flavor, in that Belmont Turf Sprint at Aqueduct on the dirt, he was actually entered for the turf that day. And he had won, and it seemed like it was kind of a last-ditch effort a couple races back when they switched to the grass with success, and he was the beneficiary that day. But I think it's an important question to raise. Is he quite as good as he used to be? I take a shot with the 2, Callaloo. I thought that this race was tricky. I don't know if he's necessarily quite good enough against these, but he has run some quick races, particularly that one. I know it was back in March, but 2 back I thought that he ran quite well. Faced Straight Arrow last time out and Shadow Dragon, 2 very talented horses, and he was on the pace that day. And I think he runs his better race when he's kind of in that stalking spot, and hopefully he might get the kind of trip that he needs today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you have to take him seriously in this spot because he's moving in the right direction, and I think that you can also forgive that first start off a layoff for him. He ran so well to win 2 back, and then as you mentioned, just facing some decent company last time, and certainly did not run poorly when doing so, actually improved quite a bit. And I think that you have to ask yourself, are we ever going to see that 90 type of effort that we saw a couple starts ago? But it seems as though he's progressing in that direction, so perhaps one to at least be considering, and I think that you'll get a fair price because a horse that you have second and I have fourth, Barese, is kind of the other one at a short price, and he has those races that make him a big player in here, but he also has some races that don't do much for me.
He is just, I mean, you know it's in there. It's just, he doesn't always show up, and he's also a horse that I've always felt is actually better going a little bit longer. So I didn't really know what to do with him because I find him so hard to trust. And you and I both going in opposite directions. And I mean, General Banker, who you have on top, I mean, he was a horse at one point that was running pretty well in races like the Withers and the Gotham.
He has to get a little bit faster
Yeah.
now as that 4-year or that later 3-year-old about to be 4-year-old. But he was originally on the Kentucky Derby Trail and running really well against some tough horses in the past. And so I think sticking with this State Bred Company, coming back with a nice return effort, kind of similar to what we had seen from him in the past, I think he does need to take that step forward. But I don't think it's out of the question that it's in there for him now, second off a layoff. And if there is that speed in here and we are dealing with a fair racetrack today, he could benefit greatly from the kind of setup he might get.
One more race on the card, this one for New York Breds, meeting Claiming, 30,000, 6.5 furlongs for the 2-year-old fillies. And once again, a race that you don't have a lot to go on in here, but we'll take a look at a replay of a couple of horses coming out of that November 9th race. In fact, 3 of them that ran for 30,000 that day.
And I wanted to take a look at a horse that actually did go off as your favorite in there, who was trying the dirt for the first time and also dropping in class and needed, because it says that she stumbled after the break. I don't think it was so significant in terms of what happened to her out of there. She kind of just bobbles forward and then rights herself a little bit. But I do think she loses some position and then gets a little bit shut off and crowded towards the outside. And then when you ultimately get into the stretch of this race for her, she's kind of lost position a little bit. She's trying to make up some ground, and then she was just so green in the stretch of this race, kind of lugging in and all over the place, and had made this move to sort of rush up into contention. You can see her start to lean in a little bit. Necessary and Proper was a horse that had some experience, and they're kind of leaning against each other while I was going for Glorious coming up the rail in there. And I just thought that with the money that she took, dropping in for a tag for the first time and switching surfaces, and maybe some things that I don't know that it was necessarily trouble, but at least minor inconveniences for her trip, I wanted to give her another opportunity over horses she had already run against in the past.
That's a very kind way of putting it. I like
Minor
that. Inconveniences. Yeah, I agree. I think that all of those horses coming out of that race can certainly run well in here. I went to somebody different, kind of a new face. I didn't end up using Needed, thinking that she'd have to overcome the post, and I want to see her get out of the gate just a little bit cleaner as well. And just a quick note on her, sometimes it's not uncommon for horses going turf to dirt to kind of break a little slowly on the dirt. They don't necessarily have as much push off, and so we'll see if she can be a little bit sharper today. But the 7, Mysaria, she's dropping in class for the first time, which I really just kind of wanted somebody that had not been exposed at the Claiming level before. And this is a horse that I thought really needed to kind of race into fitness, as a lot of Tim Hill's horses sometimes do. So now making the 3rd start of her career, she also showed much improved speed last time. So I'm hoping with this drop that she's just going to find herself in the right place.
I think that she really took a step forward, even though it might not look like it
Yeah.
on paper last time, because she was forwardly placed and had a little bit more intention about her. And okay, it didn't work out. She ultimately ends up dropping back, but she is that kind of speed and fade type that you at least know that now she's building towards a little bit more racing experience and fitness to be able to show that early. And I also just respect the horse that she faced first time out in Ashburn Alley. Seems like could be a good one for the Breen Barn.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. Maidens in the nightcap there. Some that are already exposed, and you have a couple first-time starters as well. Love Like Crazy debuting for Linda Rice. Not necessarily a barn that will win first time out, but this one maybe just kind of that proverbial new face in this spot.
Right, and not really a stallion that has a lot of first-time starters
He's
be
had
successful.
a couple, though, that we've seen here in New York. He's had a couple.
Not a ton. Not enough that I could overcome the fact that the barn usually has horses that just need a start to get rolling. But hey, if you want a new face in here, I don't blame you. Linda actually had a first-time starter run pretty well the other day. I think it was 5-2.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out in the nightcap, as that's the 9-race card on Sunday. Thanks for bearing with us throughout this show on Talking Horses. A reminder for everybody, sign up, play all of the action with NYRA Bets. You can get up to a $200 deposit match bonus by signing up with promo code MATCH200. Be sure to check out nyrabets.com for more information today. And there's always all kinds of fun promos going on over at NYRA Bets. If you play Exactas at Aqueduct today, It's a 0% takeout, which is pretty cool. Opt in at NYRABets.com. There's little Lindsay. We'll see if she can keep a straight course in today's New York Stallion Series. Don't forget, we keep reminding you, until we know
what
the
race
middle
it's in.
pick four, 3 pick fours on the card today, so don't forget about that. And then finally, America's Day at the Races kicking off in a little bit at 12 o'clock. Do know we're on FS1 to start, FS2 at 2 p.m., though we will be off air at 4 p.m. due to some accelerated post times with the wet weather out there today. But hope that you'll join us on that Sunday program on America's Day at the Races. Sarah, great job. A lot of fun as always.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
And we'll be on the set again later
to close things out.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So hope that you'll join us. Stay tuned. Chris Griffin coming up with a reprise of Scratches and Changes. Hopefully Chris made it here smoothly today. I know he, like many of us, is struggling with the subway with all the changes. He was even getting directions on the subway from Andy Sterling, who's in Jamaica.
Well, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Andy's like the all-knowing subway guru around here. So Chris Griffin standing by for reprise of Scratches and Changes. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful Sunday, everybody.